God's care for the animal creation. And the angel of the Lord said unto him, Wherefore hast thou smitten thine ass these 3 times? Behold, I went out to withstand thee, because thy way is perverse before me. Numbers 22, verse 32. Balaam was an unconverted man, and the chief feature in his character was the love of money. He loved the wages of unrighteousness. 2 Peter 2 verse 15. Other wicked men, it is said, ran greedily after the error of Balaam for reward. Jude 11. Another feature of his character was cruelty. He regarded not the life of his beast, for the tender mercies of the wicked are cruel. When the ass saw the angel of the Lord and turned out of the way, this might have wakened him to think that he was surely going out of his way. But no, instead of wakening his conscience, it wakened his anger. He smote the ass to turn her into the way. Again, when the ass saw the angel of the Lord a second time, she crushed Balaam's foot against the wall. This might have wakened him to think that this journey was only to bruise himself. But no, instead of wakening his conscience, it only wakened his anger, and he smote her again. Again, when the ass saw the angel a third time, she fell down under Balaam. This might surely have awakened him to think that this journey would end only in his destruction, but no, his conscience was unawakened, his anger was kindled, and he smote the ass a third time with a staff. And now God opened the ass's mouth to plead with him. But even this did not move him. His anger only became more ungovernable. I would there were a sword in my hand, for now would I kill thee. But God can restrain man's wrath. The angel now appears to Balaam and pleads the cause of the dumb beast. Wherefore hast thou smitten thine ass these 3 times? He shows him that his anger was most unjust and most unreasonable, that the ass had really been the means of saving his life. For unless she had turned from me, surely now also I had slain thee and saved her alive. Thus will God one day plead the cause of all dumb animals. He is now counting the blows which wicked men give to their injured cattle, and will one day demand it of them. Why hast thou smitten thine ass these numerous times? The doctrine I will draw from this account is this: God is much displeased with the sin of cruelty to animals. God is himself kind and merciful to the lower animals. This may be proved in a great many ways. First, it may be proved from their state in paradise. In paradise, God made them all very good. When the creatures came from the hand of God, they were all good. Even in the eye of God, who must surely be the best judge of happiness, their condition was good and happy. Men sometimes wonder how, under the government of a good and gracious God, the beasts should be so pained and burdened as they are now. But you should remember that when God created them, they were not as they are now, poor and burdened and diseased. There was not one among them sickly, or lame, or broken, or driven away. For the great shepherd looked over all, and even he said that all was good, very good. In paradise, animals were submissive to man. You remember how lovingly they all came flocking round our father Adam to see what names he would call them. How even the monarch of the woods came, cowering low at his feet, and the eagle came down from his nest in the rugged rocks above. All came, acknowledging man as his lord and master. They were, though, kind and friendly to one another. There were no brutal wars then, no bullfights then. The wolf did not carry off the bleeding lamb. The hawk did not pounce upon the timid sparrow then. The pictures which the prophet gives us of the second paradise, which is yet to come, seem to be borrowed from the first paradise. For then the wolf also shall dwell with the lamb, and the leopard shall lie down with the kid, and the calf and the young lion and the fatling together, and a little child shall lead them. In paradise the beasts were not to be slain. The shedding blood was a thing unknown in those happy days. Man lived on the herb of the field and the fruit of the tree. The dismal scenes of the slaughterhouse were all unknown in paradise. Not even in sacrifice were the beasts to be slain. Man had not sinned, no death had been incurred, and therefore no beast needed to die. In all this was shown that God himself is kind and merciful to the lower animals. Now, brethren, you may be harsh and cruel to the poor dumb animals if you will, but look to God, and you will see nothing but kindness and mercy toward them. Second, it may be proved from some facts in history. At the flood, when God brought the flood upon the world of the ungodly, destroying all the wicked men whom he had made, preserving only 8 persons in the ark, how kindly and graciously did he preserve vast multitudes of the lower animals. How kindly did he gather them, 2 and 2 of every kind, into the ark, and laid up sufficient food for them all, and shut them in. And all were kept safe and quiet for so long a time. This was a wonderful instance of God's kindness to the lower animals, when so many thousands of men perished in the waters. In this story of Balaam, how wonderfully did God interpose on behalf of the injured animal. It was the angel of the Lord, or rather the angel Jehovah, none other than the eternal Son of God, who stood with the flaming sword. Twice did he stand by and see the prophet cruelly beat his ass. But when the prophet smote a 3rd time with his staff, then he who delighteth in mercy could stay no longer. He opened the dumb ass's mouth. The dumb ass, speaking with man's voice, forbade the madness of the prophet. And when even that would not do, then does that blessed Saviour take up the cause himself. Why hast thou smitten thine ass these 3 times? Unless she had turned from me, surely now also I had slain thee, and saved her alive. He showed that the life of the innocent ass was more valuable in his sight than the life of the wicked prophet. How plain, brethren, that though man may be cruel, yet God is merciful and kind to the lower animals. In God's treatment of Nineveh, when the men of Nineveh repented at the preaching of Jonah, and God repented of the evil and spared the city, then it displeased Jonah exceedingly, and he was very angry and said, "It is better for me to die than to live." Then did God plead with the angry prophet, "Should not I spare Nineveh, that great city, wherein are more than 6,000 persons that cannot discern between the right hand and the left hand, and also much cattle?" The flocks and herds of mighty Nineveh sent up a cry into the ears of God of hosts, and that was one reason why he spared the place. O brethren, you may beat and injure poor dumb creatures if you will, but remember that God delights not in cruelty to the animals. He never afflicts willingly even the beasts that perish. 3. It may be proved from the law of God. It is written in the law, "Thou shalt not muzzle the ox when he treadeth out the corn." How plainly does this prove that God takes care for oxen? Again, it is written 3 times over, "Thou shalt not seethe a kid in his mother's milk." How plainly did God wish to show that he delighteth not in even the appearance of cruelty. Again it is written, "Thou shalt not see thy brother's ass or his ox fall down by the way, and hide thyself from them. Thou shalt surely help him to lift them up again." O brethren, you may think the pains and sorrows of the beasts that falls beneath its burden unworthy of a moment's thought, but does not that prove how unlike you are to the God who delights in mercy? For he pleaded for the fallen beast even from the mountain top of Sinai. Again it is written, "If a bird's nest chance to be before thee in the way in any tree, or on the ground, whether they be young ones or eggs, and the dam sitting upon the young or upon the eggs, thou shalt not take the dam with the young, but thou shalt in any wise let the dam go, that it may be well with thee, and that thou mayest prolong thy days." Ah, brethren, think of the God who made planets and worlds, who calls all the stars by name, who reigns over thrones and dominions and principalities and powers, yet making a law for the poor bird that makes its nests of straws upon the ground. And then think if he be not a God that delighteth in mercy. And last of all, it is written, "Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work, but the seventh is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt not do any work, thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle." Does God take care for cattle? Yes, brethren, even for the cattle does our God care. Even for them has he provided the Sabbath, a day of rest. And in any man or any set of men do in express contradiction to the eternal law of God give their sanction and countenance to Sabbath labor, they only show how different their mind and spirit is from the mind of God. O brethren, have nothing to do with laying Sabbath labor upon man or upon beast, or be sure that God will one day require it at your hands. For he is a just God as well as a merciful God. He delighteth in justice, and he delighteth in mercy. 4. It may be proved from the providence of God. And here I would answer a very common objection. You may say, God is not kind and merciful to the animals, else why do they suffer at all? They never sinned, and is it not very cruel, instead of kind, that they should be afflicted with pains and disease and death? To this I answer, as long as this was a sinless world, there was no pain among the animals. All was life and health and enjoyment. But when man fell, it pleased God to show the exceeding hatefulness of sin by involving all the creatures in his fall. The very earth was cursed with barrenness for man's sake. A blight has come over its loveliest seasons, and thorns and thistles grow in the richest gardens. The creatures too were cursed for man's sake. They left the green herb to devour each other. And now disease and pains and death make their hideous ravages among them. For we know that the whole creation groaneth and travaileth in pain together until now. Yes, brethren, and God means that every groan of the suffering animal should ring through your hearts and make you feel this is the misery of sin. Still, though this be a fallen world, and though the curse has spared nothing that is of the earth, still, just as, in spite of the barrenness, there are scenes of surpassing loveliness and skies that might almost have hung over paradise, just so, in spite of the curse that is on the creatures, there are kind providences toward them which show that God is the same God that ever he was, a God that delighteth in mercy. Are not five sparrows sold for 2 farthings, and not one of them is forgotten before God? Consider the ravens, for they neither sow nor reap, which neither have storehouse nor barn, and God feedeth them. Wilt thou hunt the prey for the lion, or fill the appetite of the young lions? But God provides for them. The young lions roar after their prey, and seek their meat from God. These wait all upon thee, that thou mayest give them their meat in due season. Thou openest thine hand, and satisfiest the desire of every living thing.